adjourn.
Senator Elizabeth Warren. Vice President Joe Biden. Senator Bernie Sanders. And President Donald Trump. All right, let's get the show on the road. Our first section of questions will be about foreign policy. And the first question is for Vice President Biden. Vice President Biden, what is your plan for foreign policy?
America is unique. America is exceptional. Joe's not scared of saying that. We need to be a leader in our world. Going forward, we can reclaim our role as a moral leader on the world stage rather than a geopolitical bully. We must refrain from the temptation to withdraw from world affairs to revert to isolationism. As Americans, the world's strongest and greatest nation, we must lead by example, intervening when necessary in the world's affairs, asserting our strength, yet also our desire for peace. Joe is worried by a growing trend, a growing isolationist movement, whose members, some of whom are on stage today, believe that the United States should withdraw immediately from the world stage with no consideration for the consequences and repercussions of our immediate withdrawal and ensuing absence. This sort of idealist pacifism, withdrawing mindlessly from every conflict and every operation in which we are involved, is as dangerous an idea as it is vague and unachievable. This idealistic policy of non-interventionism or isolationism, or whatever its adherents may call it, fails to consider America's role and responsibility in the larger worlds. When one power leaves, another power invariably takes its place. If we choose to withdraw completely from the Middle East, the terror regimes and authoritarian governments that we have spent decades fighting will quickly regain control. If we make the fatal and irrevocable error of withdrawing completely from the world stage, then we can all be assured that another nation will fill that void. We cannot afford for China or Russia to be the world's police. We must maintain our status as the world's moral and military leader. That's what Joe has worked towards his entire life, and it's precisely what he will continue working towards in January when he's sworn in as president.
All right, thank you, Vice President Biden. Our second question on the topic of foreign policy is for Senator Warren. And Senator Warren, what is your stance on foreign policy?
Thank you. Elizabeth Warren stands for what all of our military families stand for in this country, and that is not being involved in completely impractical wars with mass human loss and financial loss. Her first step towards protecting our United States troops would be giving Congress more power in declaring war and making it more difficult to go into these unnecessary conflicts to begin with. Warren's own brothers all fought in the military. She understands firsthand what soldiers and their families go through when it comes to military service. She believes that building up our military to its highest capacity in order to act as a deterrent to conflict is the most necessary route of action at this point. And her plan with the United States in a position where wars are not a common occurrence and our military members are not in harm's way without a valid reason. Warren believes that foreign policy is about more than just conflict. She's committed to using diplomacy and working with our allies to advance the United States' interest. Constant involvement in war has led the United States in its strength. Our military is not as strong as it would be if not for what most of these decisive wars have been causing. The United States will invest over $700 billion alone this year on military funding, more than ever in recent history. Warren believes this money should be coming back to the United States used in things such as public education and other public spending. She believes foreign policy is about more than force, it involves principles and relationships.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Our third question on foreign policy is for President Trump. And Mr. President, what is your stance on foreign policy?
The United States of America is arguably the most powerful and influential nation in the world. President Donald Trump has furthered our status as a world power. He has sought to boost an American industry by imposing tariffs on our biggest competitor, China. Even with these tariffs, we still have one of the best relationships with China we've ever had. After Iran violated the nuclear deal, Trump was quick to leave the deal as it had had no benefit to the United States, and clearly the Iranians did not respect it. President Trump then began to enforce sanctions which crippled the Iranian economy. Another one of Trump's major strides in foreign policy has been North Korea. President Trump was the first sitting president to stand on North Korean territory since the Korean War. They signed a joint statement that promised denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Trump also announced that the U.S. would be refraining from holding any further joint military exercises with South Korea, as was considered provocative. All this represents the great relationship between North Korea and the United States, the greatest it's been since the Korean War. If you would like the United States to keep its global power status while maintaining good relations with other world powers, then you should vote for President Trump.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as some of you may know, we just got word of a special announcement from Senator Klobuchar's campaign. I think Senator Klobuchar has a special announcement to make right now.
Hi, everybody. I would like to announce that as of 1:37 today, Senator Klobuchar has suspended her campaign for president. She wants to thank her supporters and encourage them to get behind the Biden campaign.
All right, thank you, Senator Klobuchar. With that, let's start the second round of questioning.
All right, so moving on to healthcare. Senator Sanders, how do you feel about healthcare in our country today?
Bernie Sanders' position on healthcare is to create a single-payer national health insurance program called Medicare for All. This program would provide healthcare coverage at the point of service. This program includes no networks, no premiums, no deductibles, no copays, and no surprise bills. Medicare coverage will include all healthcare needs, and under this new system, the pharmaceutical industry will no longer be a rip-off of American people. In America today, over 30 million Americans don't have healthcare or are underinsured. Even for people that have insurance, the cost of medical bills are extremely high. Medical bills are the #1 cause of bankruptcy in the United States. Money should be invested into new drugs and technologies instead of wasting hundreds of billions of dollars a year on profiteering, huge executive compensation packages, and outrageous administrative costs. A Yale University study predicts that Bernie's Medicare for All plan would save over $450 billion in healthcare costs and prevent 68,000 unnecessary American deaths. In addition to working to provide affordable healthcare in hospitals across the country, Bernie is working on making sure that we lower the outrageously high drug prices. Under the Prescription Drug Price Relief Act of 2020, prescription drug prices will be cut in half. Healthcare is a basic human right, and as President, Bernie Sanders will secure that right for every American.
Okay, moving on to former Vice President Joe Biden.
Our nation's health, the health of our people, must be at the forefront of our national consciousness. In America, we take care of our most vulnerable and prioritize the least privileged members of society. We take care of our seniors. They've earned every penny they receive through a lifetime of work and service. We take care of our children, the future of our country, and our nation's greatest resource. As your president, Joe will ensure your safety and that of your children and their children and their children. There are some candidates who, quite frankly, want to scare you. Candidates who care less about getting things done and more about fanaticism and extremism that they believe will help them win an election. The immediate implementation of universal health care is not realistic. Anyone with the far-flung notion that they will enter the White House and overthrow the insurance industry that successfully protects hundreds of millions of Americans is not qualified to be our nominee. We can achieve reform without upheaval. We need unity, not chaos. One chaotic president should not follow another. As president, Joe will expand the Affordable Care Act that he fought and won for with President Obama during their time in the White House. Together, by cooperating with Congress and Republicans, not by alienating and denouncing them, he won health insurance for 20 million Americans. Joe's done it before, and he'll do it again.
Our next topic, we'll be hearing the candidates discuss the economy, starting with Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you. Elizabeth Warren seeks to aid the American economy in two ways: forcing the rich to pay their fair share in taxes and increasing jobs and raising wages for said jobs. The rich have never been held accountable for paying their fair taxes in this country. She has said that for decades, Washington has lived by a simple rule: if it's good for Wall Street, it's good for the economy. The 400 wealthiest people in the United States own more wealth than all the Black and Latino households own combined. According to a study from the University of California, Berkeley, the top 0.01% has seen its wealth nearly triple between the late 1970s and 2016. To solve this issue, Warren plans to propose an ultra-millionaire tax to curb this unequal distribution of wealth. This tax would target Americans who gross more than $50 million each year. This accounts for about 75,000 households, but will bring in about $3.75 trillion per year. Warren also believes that raising taxes and creating more jobs would boost the economy, because once workers finally have power regarding their pay, then the United States truly becomes a democracy. She has vowed to extend labor rights for all workers, strengthen collective bargaining and the right to strike, raising wages, protecting pensions, increasing worker choice control, expand worker protections, combat discrimination, and improve enforcement. She has pledged to nominate a workers' advocate to fill any Supreme Court vacancy. This would prevent the Supreme Court from making any decisions that hand power from the workers to powerful corporations. And Warren believes that the American economy can change for the better, resulting in workers earning fair wages and compensation, and the wealthy not receiving preferential treatment. This will be an economy based on the people, for the people.
President Trump, what is your stance on the economy?
As our president, Donald J. Trump has masterminded the economy, and everyone admits it's one of the best economic periods in our country's history. Trump constantly boasts about his economy, and he has the numbers to back it up. The Dow Jones hit a record high of 29,500 points under Trump's presidency. Unemployment at its lowest in 50 years, and Trump's administration has had the lowest average unemployment in history. The way Trump is able to boast these record-breaking numbers is through supply-side economics. This works by cutting regulations on businesses and lowering taxes so that citizens will spend more money and businesses will be able to sell their products at low prices, stimulating the economy. Trump said before coming into office that for every new regulation, 2 will be revoked, signing an executive order requiring executive agencies to fulfill this. His administration exceeded this goal, cutting on average 2.6 regulations for every new regulation added. Trump also promised and delivered tax cuts for almost all federal income tax brackets, with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. 5 of the 7 tax brackets saw a decrease from 1 to 4% in income tax, and the other 2 brackets remained the same. On top of that, the act set a single lower corporate tax at 21%. Overall, a vote for President Trump is a vote for lower taxes, lower unemployment, less regulations, more jobs, and an all-around stronger economy for the next 4 years.
And on to the next topic. Senator Sanders, what's your position on education in the United States?
Bernie Sanders wholeheartedly believes that every human being has the fundamental right to a good and affordable education. If elected to the presidency, he plans to implement guaranteed tuition in debt-free public colleges, universities, HBCUs, and minority-serving institutions, and trade schools for all. There are currently 45 million Americans who collectively owe $1.6 trillion in student debt. And Mr. Sanders is committed to cancel all of that debt and cap the student loan interest rate at 1.8%. Mr. Sanders is also looking to bring the United States up to the same standards as many other developed countries when it comes to childcare, by making childcare and pre-K services free for all. He believes that our current childcare and pre-K system is failing our children, parents, and early education workers. Families on average are spending between 9 and 22% of their income on childcare services. The benefits of Bernie Sanders' plan are numerous and long-lasting. Many peer-reviewed studies have shown that children with high-quality early education perform better throughout their school careers, are less likely to run in with the law, and report higher earnings later in life.
And former Vice President Biden, what's your stance on education?
The future of our country is in our children, and no one understands that more than Joe does. He has spent his life devoted to public service, parents, teachers, workers, and most importantly, America's children. He knows better than any candidate on this stage the values of education as the cornerstone of a strong and great society. Firstly, Joe will defund for-profit charter schools. These schools are no better than our public schools, and they take away much-needed money from public education and funnel it into for-profit operations. Our children have the right to attend schools that care about them and support them, not competitive for-profit institutions. Wall Street executives can complain as much as they want, funnel dark money to Joe's opponents represented on the stage as much as they want, but Joe will always prioritize America's children, America's greatest resource, over their profits. Joe understands the vitally important duties that teachers face. He will fight hard to achieve for teachers the pay, the lives, and the respect that they deserve, something that is long overdue. Our teachers make too little money for jobs that are too important, and by raising teacher pay, not only will the supply of teachers increase, but the teachers who are hired will be of a higher caliber. Finally, Joe understands that one of our primary responsibilities as a nation is to fully educate its citizens. Our college system is far too expensive, and too many students have been crushed by the burden of debt while the government has sat idly by. Joe will pay for the first 2 years of college and drastically expand the student debt forgiveness program to protect Americans from crippling debt without crippling the budget.
Thank you, Vice President Biden. We are now going to move on to our last round of questioning, and this round is about the climate. Our first question is for Senator Sanders. Senator Sanders, what is your policy on climate change?
Bernie Sanders will fight for our climate. He's an avid supporter of the Green New Deal, legislation that will over time transform our energy system to 100% renewable. In the process, create 20 million jobs, all the while ensuring a fair and smooth transition for communities and workers who rely on fossil fuels. Bernie will fight to stop climate change in its tracks, putting our country back in the Paris Accord and investing $200 billion to the green climate fund. Bernie will work to conserve our public forests and national parks. We will ensure justice for frontline communities, especially under-resourced groups such as communities of color, Native Americans, people with disabilities, children, and the elderly. Sanders will improve our green public transportation and build necessary modern infrastructure to advance our country. As president, he will eliminate the greed of the fossil fuel industry and hold them accountable for their detrimental impact on our environment. Sanders has been a long-standing advocate for the implementation of a carbon tax. A carbon tax is a form of pollution tax. It levies a fee on the production, distribution, and use of fossil fuels. A carbon tax is the core policy for reducing and eventually eliminating the use of fossil fuels, whose combustion is destabilizing and destroying our climate. Sanders is taking the lead in the fight to keep fossil fuels, gas, oil, and coal where they belong, in the ground. Bernie will once again make our country a leader in attacking the imminent climate crisis.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Our next question is for President Trump. Mr. President, what is your stance on climate change?
President Trump's take on environmental and climate policy is a shift from what most Democratic candidates believe in regards to the issue. He expressed the belief that global warming is a natural cycle and that carbon dioxide emissions are not the primary contributors to global warming. The Trump administration saw an increase in fossil fuel usage as a more reliable source that produces the most jobs and brings about the most economic benefits compared to renewable sources. The Paris Climate Accord had an impending cost that would act as a brake on the U.S. economic growth. Due to this cost and not wanting to halt the economic boom, President Trump made the decision to pull the accord. Considering this and the domestic deregulation, this allowed for more job opportunities in oil drilling and increases in wages by $30 billion. This being a result of a 30% proposed budget cut from the EPA. Keeping Trump in office would assure the voter the ideal balance between environmental efficiency and the economy would be kept.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, we will move on to the last round. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to give a closing statement, and we're going to start with Senator Warren. Senator Warren, your closing statement.
Elizabeth Warren believes in an America that fulfills its promises to its people, to its allies, and to its values. Through thoughtful, balanced, and cost-conscious plans, Warren plans to bring balance instead of bluster to solve real-world problems for real people. Elizabeth Warren will never stop fighting for you.
Thank you, Senator Warren. Vice President Biden.
Now more than ever, we need strong and practical solutions to the issues facing our great nation. Ideologues have a place in America, but that place is not the White House. We have no shortage of career politicians on the stage who have spent their decades in Washington speaking a lot but doing very little. Presidents need to get things done. The White House is for fighters, for advocates of justice. It's for people who can truly enact change. The White House is for forward-thinking problem solvers, for people who have bold ambitions and have shown throughout their career an ability to compromise to achieve meaningful reform. There is only one candidate who can get the job done. He spent 8 years in the Obama administration. He's fought for expanded health care and won. He's fought for immigration reform and won. He's fought for civil rights and won. His name is Joe Biden, and he needs your vote.
Thank you, Vice President Biden. We are now going to move on to Senator Sanders. Senator Sanders, your closing statement.
Bernie Sanders is the candidate for change. He understands the problem that this country faces, and he has plans to address them. Mr. Sanders does understand that his plans will not be cheap, and that money does not grow on trees. He has concluded that by implementing increased taxes on the top 0.1% of Americans and closing corporate tax loopholes, the cost of his programs will be largely covered. He has shown over the last month that he has nationwide support to get into the White House. By voting for Bernie Sanders, you're voting for someone who can beat Trump.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Mr. President, your closing statement.
I'm going to keep this short and simple. All the other candidates talk about what they're going to do as president. Donald Trump is the only one who's gotten it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And with that, a big round of applause for the candidates. And just a few other short notes. If you haven't signed in yet, please find a sign-in clipboard so you can get your credit for your social studies classes. Mr. Glavin is waving his hand in the back. And a few more people to thank, Mr. Glavin and Mr. Cuoco, the best in the business, and please round of applause for them. for our amazing staff that put this all together in the back. A round of applause for them as well, please. So thank you all so much. We hope you all took something from this. This was to get you involved, hopefully in a fun manner. It's important to get involved and stay involved. So please vote and have a great day. Thank you all.